to marvel at a flower growing through stone, to marvel at the warmth of kindness, to marvel at the simple capacity within us to love, to understand and to forgive. For every time we wonder, we become a little more like Aquinas, the man who sought God in all things and found him everywhere. All that I have written seems like straw compared to what has now been revealed to me. Thomas Aquinas, these were his final words, not of despair, but of humility. For after a lifetime of using reason to understand, he realized that there are truths that can only be known through love, and perhaps that is the highest form of wisdom. In the quiet of this night, as you gently close your eyes, remember that all you learn, all you believe, and all you love are not separate things. They are the three heartbeats of one soul, the human heart reaching toward truth, goodness and beauty, and through them toward God. This is the spirit of Aquinas. Not the coldness of intellect, but the soft light of reason lit by the flame of faith. Not a philosophy made to argue, but a philosophy made to live, to love, to understand, to find peace. To one who has faith, no explanation is necessary. To one without faith, no explanation is possible. Thomas Aquinas. Sometimes the most important thing is not to understand everything, but simply to feel that there is meaning, and that meaning is the boundless love surrounding you in every breath, in every heartbeat, in every peaceful sleep. So as you let go of thought and drift into stillness, let the final words of Thomas Aquinas rest upon you like a blessing. Truth does not oppose truth, and all that is true and beautiful and good is leading you back to God. Sleep peacefully now, for you are resting in that truth. And when morning comes, the world will still be beautiful, because within you the light of reason and faith still shines as brightly as it did in the beginning. You do not need to understand to be at peace. You need only trust that amid the flow of time, even within what you cannot explain, an unseen hand is leading you toward the light. After journeying through being and knowledge, ethics and politics, beauty and suffering, light and shadow, the path with Thomas Aquinas ends not with a theorem, but with a gentle faith that between reason and faith, between science and the soul, there is no abyss, only roads waiting to be joined. He stood between two worlds thought irreconcilable, classical Greek philosophy and Christian theology. With the light of reason and the flame of faith, he built an everlasting bridge, a place where we can think and trust, understand and contemplate. Faith and reason are like two wings on which the human spirit rises to the contemplation of truth. Thomas Aquinas. For him, truth does not belong to one religion or one school. It hides within the unity of all that is good, beautiful and true, philosophy, religion, science, art. All are different ways by which the human being touches the same reality. God, the self-existing one, absolute truth. Aquinas brought the spirit of Aristotle, reason, order, logic, into the soul of Christianity, faith, love and mystery. From these, he raised a cathedral of thought where knowledge and religion no longer conflict, but kneel together before truth. Truth cannot contradict truth. Thomas Aquinas, this conviction became a foundation for centuries of philosophy, theology, law, and science. The earliest European universities, Paris, Oxford, Bologna, breathed Aquinas' spirit. Learning as a spiritual journey, study as a form of prayer. In his world, to learn is an act of love. Only when we love truth are we patient enough to seek it. Only when we are humble do we recognize we have not understood all. To love God is something greater than to know Him. Thomas Aquinas did not ask us to abandon reason, nor to forget faith. He wished us to love with the intellect and to understand with the heart. That is his greatest spiritual legacy. The legacy of harmony in a divided world. From natural law to virtue ethics, from divine providence to beauty as the splendor of truth, his philosophy became a living source for Western ethics, politics, art, and science. And now, as you rest, let these two wings, reason and faith, fold gently over you. For truth and love have never been enemies. They are the two steady beats of the same quiet heart, your heart, moving toward God. The thinkers who came after, from Descartes to Kant, from Newton to Einstein, all lived in the long shadow of Aquinas, though they did not always know it. For whenever we say, the universe has order, or nature has laws, or reason can understand the world, and we are echoing what Thomas affirmed 8 centuries ago. Order in the universe is the reflection of divine wisdom. Thomas Aquinas yet, his legacy does not live only in books of philosophy. It lives in the way modern humanity still searches for meaning amid chaos, still asks, who am I? Why is there good and evil? What is beauty? Why do I suffer? And no matter how many scientific tools we possess, we still return to those same questions, like children returning home. Aquinas taught us that such questions are not signs of weakness, but proof that the soul is still alive, and as long as humanity continues to ask, to seek, and to love, God remains present in the world. In every thought, every tear, every small act of goodness, the things that we love tell us what we are. Thomas Aquinas, if we love truth, we are seekers of light. If we love goodness, we are travelers returning to our source. And if we love beauty, we are seeing the reflection of God in all things. Thus, the legacy of Aquinas is not a stack of books, but a spirit of living, a spirit that believes human beings can understand the world with reason without losing their souls, can love by faith without blindness. He did not make reason kneel, nor let faith rule over knowledge. He let both hold hands and walk together toward truth. Reason is the light of the mind, given by God to guide us toward truth. Thomas Aquinas today, in an age of science and technology, when humanity seems to know more but believe less, the spirit of Aquinas still echoes as a gentle reminder. Learn, understand, explore, and do not forget to love. Question, but do not despair. Analyze the world, but do not lose the capacity to be amazed by its beauty. For science answers the how, while philosophy and faith answer the why. And only when both questions are asked together can we truly understand what it means to live. Wonder is the beginning of wisdom. Thomas Aquinas, wonder is the beginning of wisdom. And in a world weary from noise, perhaps what humanity needs most is not more information, but a moment of stillness to wonder again. Even the broken and misplaced contributes to the perfect picture in the end. When seen up close, we notice only tangles, overlap, and seeming meaninglessness. But when seen from above, we begin to see that every suffering, every mistake, every fall is guiding the soul toward its final good. God moves all things to their proper end. Thomas Aquinas, God does not remove freedom. He guides freedom with love so that even error becomes a path of return. A person gone astray, a single tear, a loss beyond explanation, all are gathered into his plan. Like low notes in the symphony of redemption, Aquinas believed that time is the instrument God uses to heal and to help the human person grow. Time is not only a stream, it is the school of the soul. If eternity is God's own being, then time is the gift he gives to creatures so they may become like him, little by little, day by day. Time is the measure of change, Thomas Aquinas in time. We experience the process, to be born, to grow, to love, to suffer, to lose, and then to learn to love even more. Each moment is an opportunity for moral and spiritual transformation. No one attains perfection instantly. It is a journey in which every step, however small, has value. Time teaches us humility, that we cannot grasp or hoard it, but can only live each moment fully. Time teaches us love, for we know that all things can be lost, and time teaches us trust, and for in impermanence, we discover that something unchanging holds all things up. Eternity is simultaneously whole and perfect. Thomas Aquinas said that with God there is no before or after. Every moment is present together in his single loving gaze. He sees the whole picture, from beginning to end, in one glance of love. We, living within time, see only a fragment, and this is why we suffer. But if we can trust that what he is painting is not yet finished, we will understand that even today's dark colors are needed for tomorrow's canvas. Today's tears may be the rain that softens the earth for tomorrow's flowers. In all created things, there is order, and this order is the likeness of the divine wisdom. Thomas Aquinas, order in creation is the imprint of God's wisdom. This means there is no true chaos, only our temporary lack of understanding of that order. When we look beyond pain, we see that suffering does not destroy life's meaning. It opens a deeper layer of meaning. Like fire that refines gold, suffering refines the soul. It removes what is not needed, leaving what is eternal. When all outward joys fall away, what remains unshaken is faith, hope, and love. Suffering is a medicine for salvation. Thomas Aquinas did not romanticize pain. He did not say we must seek it. He only said that when it comes, let it teach us what peace cannot. Some lessons are written only in tears. Some prayers are heard only in the silence of pain. Suffering for him is the chance to know God by the heart, not only by the intellect. For reason can grasp perfection, but only the suffering heart can understand mercy. Mercy is the greatest of the virtues. Thomas Aquinas, and it is precisely in mercy that God meets the human being, not in their perfection, but in the deepest cracks of the soul. He does not stand over our pain. He is within it, turning it into a road toward love. If you have known loss, loneliness, or hurt, remember that in Aquinas' philosophy, no pain is wasted. Every tear is a wordless prayer. Every wound is a small window open to the light. And each time we choose to trust amid suffering, God uses that trust to weave something better than we can imagine. In everything, there is a purpose, though we may not yet see it. Thomas Aquinas, and perhaps this is the last lesson his philosophy offers to tired souls, do not fear time, do not fear suffering, and do not imagine that you have slipped from God's hand, for He is there, in every moment, every breath, every heartbeat. Looking back, you may see that precisely when you felt weakest, He was holding you strongest. On the days that seemed like loss, He was teaching you the worth of love. And when you felt most alone, He was nearest of all. God never allows any evil except for the sake of a greater good. Thomas Aquinas' time is the long song of providence. Every sorrowful note has a place in the eternal melody. And when the music ends, you will recognize no sound was wasted, no silence was without meaning. All belong to the music of God. Therefore, do not fear living, do not fear losing, do not fear loving, and do not fear pain, for everything you pass through, every second, every breath, is used by Him to shape your soul into His own image. And when sleep comes tonight, let every sadness settle. Remember, as Thomas Aquinas once said, to love God is something greater than to know Him. And when human beings live virtuously, acting justly, loving truly, creating beautifully, they too become part of that vast harmony. All things created by God are beautiful, for they participate in His light. Thomas Aquinas' beauty does not need to be perfect by human standards. It needs only to be true to its nature, a wrinkle, a scar, tired eyes. If they reflect love, they are beautiful. For true beauty lies not in shape, but in the light that shines from within. When you behold beauty, do not only look, listen, for in that instant, your soul is being called home, like a speck of dust remembering the light. And if you grow still enough, you may hear the familiar whisper, beauty is not far away. It lives within you in how you see, how you love, and how you live. Beauty is the splendor of truth. Thomas Aquinas' beauty is the radiance of truth. And when we live truly, love sincerely, and think honestly, our lives themselves become beautiful. No great art is needed, only an honest soul that turns toward the light. That is Aquinas' aesthetic. Not to worship form, but to awaken the soul to the beauty already shining all around. And so, Aquinas ended his reflections on beauty with light. But light only has meaning because it is seen against the background of darkness. Thus, when speaking of the beauty of the universe, he did not avoid the question that has haunted philosophers for centuries, the question of suffering. If God is absolute goodness, if the universe is order and love, then why must humanity endure loss, sickness, loneliness, and death? That question, from the time of Job until today, has never fallen silent. Thomas Aquinas did not deny suffering. He acknowledged that pain is real and an inseparable part of existence, but he also said that within suffering lies a deeper order of love, one that human reason is often too dim to see. God permits evil only that He may draw from it a greater good. Thomas Aquinas' God allows evil to exist, not because He wills it, but because from it He can bring forth a greater good. Suffering is not punishment. It is transformation, the place where the soul learns to love more deeply, to trust more fully, to see the value of light. In Aquinas' world, everything has its reason within the divine plan of love, even pain, even tears, even the long nights without answers. Nothing lies outside the order of divine providence. Nothing happens outside the order of divine providence. Thomas Aquinas' providence, he said, does not mean that God controls us like puppets. He respects human freedom. Yet from that freedom, He weaves a larger tapestry where every thread. Art, said Aquinas, does not imitate the surface of the world. It imitates the way the world works, the way God brings order from chaos, the way light shapes matter into form. A work of art is beautiful not because it copies reality, but because it reflects truth through the beauty of its own being. In every melody, poem, painting, or cathedral, if it is truly beautiful, we sense something beyond humanity, a glance from the other side. And in the stillness of contemplation, the soul rises, beyond reason, beyond emotion, to touch the absolute beauty, what Aquinas called claritas Dei, the light of God shining through all things. For Aquinas, beauty cannot be separated from truth and goodness. Truth is the light of the intellect. Goodness is the light of the will. Beauty is the light of unity. These three do not oppose one another. They are three facets of a single gem. When we understand, we love. When we love, we see beauty. And when we see beauty, we are illuminated. Beauty and goodness in a thing are identical fundamentally, for they are both based upon the same thing, the form. Thomas Aquinas' beauty and goodness, he said, differ only in how we experience them, but they share one origin, the form of truth. The good makes us want to possess, the beautiful makes us want to contemplate. The good calls us to act, the beautiful invites us to pause, to be still. And in that stillness the soul becomes transparent, allowing the light of truth to pass through. That is why Aquinas believed that beauty has the power to save, not because it replaces religion, but because it awakens in us the memory of God. A piece of music may move us to tears, not for its notes, but because our soul recognizes something familiar, an echo from the place it once belonged. A painting may leave us silent, for in its colors we glimpse the order of the universe that our spirit has always longed for. Beauty is the wordless language of God, spoken to those who know how to listen. The soul is delighted by the beautiful, for through it she recognizes her origin. Thomas Aquinas, the soul rejoices in beauty, for through it she remembers her source. Thus, to contemplate beauty is a form of prayer, a silent thanksgiving for the presence of God in the world. Aquinas spoke not only of human art, but of the artistry of the cosmos. He believed that every creature, no matter how small, adds its own note to the great symphony of the Creator. A falling leaf, a bird's song, a drop of pure water. Each bears the aesthetic of God, where everything exists in its right place, in its right time, for its right purpose, and life itself into a testimony of the good. As you close your eyes, remember that philosophy does not live only in old books. It lives in every decision you make each day. Each time you choose goodness, you are living the deepest part of that philosophy, and when you fall asleep in peace, your soul rests in the rhythm of the common good, where reason and faith, humanity and God breathe together in eternal harmony. When people live with clear reason and sincere virtue, when society is built upon justice and charity, Thomas Aquinas' final question lingers like a soft musical note. All this goodness, all this order, but where does it lead? And he answered, it leads to beauty. For in the universe, all truth and all goodness ultimately shine forth in the form of beauty. Beauty is not a fleeting emotion. It is truth made visible. The beautiful is that which pleases when seen. Thomas Aquinas, Thomas. Aquinas saw beauty as the reflection of God's light within the visible world. Nothing in creation is meaningless. For every grain of sand, every drop of dew, every human face contains a trace of that light. When we are moved by beauty, a melody, a sunset, an act of kindness, our souls are recognizing the fingerprints of the Creator. Beauty is a reflection of the divine. Thomas Aquinas believed that beauty has three elements: integritas, proportio and claritas, wholeness, proportion, and radiance. Wholeness, integritas, is completeness, the absence of defect or excess. A thing is beautiful when it is whole in its very essence. Nothing missing, nothing superfluous. Proportion, proportio, is harmony, the rhythm between the small and the great, between the part and the whole. Radiance, claritas, is the inner light that causes a thing to shine, not by its material brightness, but by the transparency of its being. Beauty consists in due proportion, for the senses delight in things duly proportioned. Thomas Aquinas, when we gaze upon a flower, A star or a human being, we find beauty not merely in form, but in an inner light that makes it true to itself. Beauty, therefore, does not reside only in what is seen. It exists in the harmony between the seer and the seen, where the soul recognizes itself in the object of its contemplation. That is why, for Aquinas, to see beauty is a spiritual act. For when we perceive beauty in the universe, we behold a small reflection of God Himself. He is pulchrum ipsum, beauty itself, the source of all beauty we can ever feel or imagine. God is beauty itself. Thomas Aquinas, in this light, art is not decoration for life, it is humanity's participation in God's creative act. When the artist creates beauty, they do not conjure it from nothing. They draw back the veil of reality to reveal the light hidden beneath. They become co-creators, working with God to complete the unfinished painting of the world. Art imitates nature in its mode of operation. Thomas Aquinas. Thomas also spoke of temperance and humility, virtues that keep the soul clear amid a world of temptation. He knew that humanity is imperfect, but self-mastery is what makes us truly human. When we know when to stop, when to limit our desires, we do not lose joy. We preserve the dignity of the soul. Temperance is simply a disposition of the mind which binds the passions. Thomas Aquinas, to live virtuously, therefore does not mean to give up joy, but to learn how to rejoice more deeply and purely. As when we savor a good meal not from greed, but from gratitude. As when we love a person not to possess, but to share. Moderation does not extinguish life's fire. It allows it to burn steady and bright. When practiced daily, these virtues turn society into a living body of goodness, each person a cell, small yet essential, and the common good its beating heart, where every act moves toward true happiness. Thomas did not dream of an earthly paradise. He simply believed that if each person lived with clear reason and gentle heart, the world itself would already reflect God. Thus, ethics and politics are not separate. They are two rhythms of one purpose, the harmonious growth of both the individual and the community, of the soul and the world. The good of the individual is impossible without the common good of the community. Thomas Aquinas, the happiness of each person cannot exist without the happiness of all, and the common good of all cannot stand without individuals living virtuously. It is a never-ending circle, where personal virtue nourishes the common good, and the common good in turn reflects virtue back into each soul. When Aquinas spoke of serving the community, he did not speak like a politician, but like a man who understood that service is the highest form of love. A righteous leader is one who places himself last. A good citizen is one who lives so that the world is better for their presence. Service is not blind sacrifice, but the act of a soul that knows its own goodness is bound to the goodness of the world. He who seeks not the common good is a traitor to his own soul. Thomas Aquinas. The soul cannot be happy while the world around it still suffers. And perhaps that is why ethics is not only personal. It is the breath of society, the heartbeat of humanity. When you look at your own life, your work, your family, your friends, and even the quiet moments in the night, you may realize that Aquinas' philosophy is not distant. It is present in the way you listen to someone, in the way you forgive, in the way you strive each day to be just a little better. To live virtuously is not to live differently, but to live more deeply, to find meaning in small things, to love with a clear mind and a kind heart. better to illuminate than merely to shine, to deliver to others contemplated truths than merely to contemplate. Thomas Aquinas, it is better to illuminate than merely to shine. Better to share goodness than to keep it locked inside, and that in the end is the final application of Aquinas' philosophy. To turn knowledge into kindness, faith into action. Aquinas did not see ethics as an abstract system, but as the art of living well in the ordinary world. He believed that in every role, as father, mother, friend, or leader, we are all invited to practice virtue, like notes blending into the symphony of the common good. In work, prudence helps us balance ambition with integrity, efficiency with humanity. We work not merely to achieve, but to grow, as souls evolving, moving toward perfection. Each action gains meaning when it reflects an inner value: honesty, patience, responsibility, and service. Work, then, is no longer a burden, but a way of collaborating with God in the continual act of creation. To live well is to work well, to show a good activity. Thomas Aquinas, in The Family, Aquinas saw love as the closest image of God. Love for him is not emotion, but the will to will the good of the other, a husband living with compassion, a wife living with gentleness, a child obeying with affection. These are small reflections of divine love itself. The family, he said, is the first school of virtue, where we learn to give without expecting, to be patient and to listen. Love is to will the good of the other. Thomas Aquinas. For Aquinas, true friendship was a noble form of goodness, a reflection of the relationship between the soul and God. True friendship is not based on benefit, but on goodwill, the desire to move together toward the good. When we find such a friend, we do not merely find a companion, but a mirror, a place where reason is heard and the soul finds rest. There is nothing on this earth more to be prized than true friendship. Thomas Aquinas, and in society, Aquinas declared that living ethically is the truest way to build the common good. No political system can redeem a nation if its people do not live by virtue. The state may make laws, but only people can create love. A just society begins not in parliaments, but in the heart of each citizen. Justice is a habit whereby man renders to each his due by a constant and perpetual will. Thomas Aquinas, justice is not a feeling, but a habit of will, the steady desire to give each person what they deserve. A just person needs no surveillance, for their conscience is law enough. And a society built upon such souls needs no fear to maintain order, only trust and mutual respect. Knowledge is not meant to replace God, but to love Him through understanding. Wonder is the desire for knowledge. Thomas Aquinas' wonder. The awe before the beauty of the universe is the first step of both philosophy and faith. If we can still wonder, we can still open ourselves to believe. If we can still listen, we are still humble enough to learn, and perhaps, in this quiet night, as you hear these words, you too are standing between those two rivers, reason and faith, flowing together within you. There is no need to choose one over the other. Let them both remain, both uphold you, and both carry you closer to the truth Thomas Aquinas sought all his life, the harmony between understanding and belief, between science and the soul, between humanity and God. For, as he once wrote, to love God is something greater than to know Him. Thomas Aquinas, and perhaps understanding, is merely the path by which love learns the name it has sought. Faith is the gentle breath of reason bowing before infinite mystery. As you close your eyes, let these ideas melt like dew upon a lake. Let the reason within you rest, and let faith whisper softly, for in the deepest place of stillness, truth needs no argument, it only needs to be felt. And in that moment, as sleep arrives so lightly, you will understand what Thomas Aquinas spent a lifetime to say. Truth and love, reason and faith are never enemies. They are two beats of the same heart, the heart of a human being turning toward God. The everyday life of virtue, where philosophy become living. After Thomas Aquinas had guided us through the long journey of knowledge and soul, from being to faith, from justice to happiness, he finally paused at the most ordinary place of all, daily life, where philosophy returns to breath, where goodness is no longer confined to books, but exists in every small choice we make. For Aquinas, philosophy was not merely something to contemplate, but something to live, and faith was not merely something to believe, but something to act upon. The purpose of the law is not to make men simply restrain from evil, but to make them good. Thomas Aquinas, the purpose of every moral rule, every law is not to force people to avoid evil, but to teach them how to become good. And this becoming good does not happen in monasteries, but in the very places where we live. At work, within the family, in friendship, and amid the restless world. Thomas called this practical wisdom will be prudence, not the shrewdness of calculation, but the clarity of a soul that knows how to choose the good in each particular moment. Prudence keeps us from being swept away by blind emotion and from being ruled by cold logic. It brings both into harmony so we can act rightly, at the right time, in the right way. Prudence is right reason in action. Thomas Aquinas, practical wisdom is right reason in action. It is not measured by words, but by the quiet choices we make each day. When we speak the truth even when it is hard, when we choose forgiveness instead of revenge, when we restrain our anger, or dare to do what is right though we stand alone, that is prudence. Aquinas saw the resurrection of the body not merely as a religious symbol, but as an affirmation of the world's inherent goodness. For if God called creation good from the beginning, its final destiny cannot be to deny the body, but to sanctify all of creation. Every particle, every beam of light, every soul, all are returning to their original order, the order of love. All things desire to return to their source. Thomas Aquinas and humanity, creature of earth and heaven alike, is no exception. When the body is raised, it will no longer be a chain, but a halo of light surrounding the soul, so that the soul may behold God with the fullness of all that it is. This is the final reunion, not to live another life, but to live eternal life in His pure light. When we understand this, we no longer fear death, for death does not take anything away. It simply returns us to the light we have, always carried in our hearts. Only when the weary body falls asleep does the soul truly awaken, and perhaps that is why Aquinas ended his entire philosophical system not with an argument, but with silence. The silence of one who has seen enough to know that everything has been completed in love. The highest knowledge is to know that we do not know. Thomas Aquinas, for when the soul touches God, words are no longer necessary, questions no longer meaningful. Only presence remains. Still, radiant and infinite in this quiet night. If you gently close your eyes, imagine your soul as a small lamp in a sky of stars. You are not lost. You are returning to boundless light, where every pain softens into peace. For it is in sleep itself that we learn to release, to trust, and to return to what lies beyond reason. What Thomas Aquinas called by the simplest and deepest of names, the love of God. After all he wrote, pondered, and believed, Thomas Aquinas left the world a simple, undying truth. Veritas non potest contra veritatem. Thomas Aquinas. Truth cannot contradict truth, for across every level of understanding, from the smallest speck of dust to the farthest star, from the human mind to the eternity of God, there is only one truth, and every path of reason or of faith, if rightly walked, meets at the same point. Aquinas lived in an age split in two, between Greek philosophy and Christian theology, between reason and revelation, between those who believed only faith leads to God and those who believed reason alone leads to truth. But he did what few dared. He reconciled those poles through a love for truth. Faith and reason are like two wings on which the human spirit rises to the air. Contemplation of truth. Thomas Aquinas, reason and faith to him are not opposing forces but the two wings of the same soul. By reason, we can understand the world, see its order, and recognize the traces of the Creator in each phenomenon. By faith, we can pass beyond the limits of knowing to touch what reason cannot reach. One wing helps us fly, the other keeps us from falling. Aquinas affirmed that the truth of philosophy cannot contradict the truth of religion, for both spring from the same source of light, God. If there appears to be conflict, it is because human understanding is not yet bright enough to see that light refracting differently in two mirrors. For him, reason does not destroy faith. It prepares for faith, and faith does not negate reason. It illumines reason. Reason in man is rather like God in the world. Thomas Aquinas. Reason in the human person is like God in the world, not ruling by imposition, but guiding by order and light. By reason, we recognize that existence has a purpose. By faith, we know that this purpose is love. In this vision, philosophy and theology are not two separate hills, but two parallel roads leading to the same summit. Philosophy begins with the human being and climbs toward God. Theology begins with God and descends to explain the human being. They meet where reason kneels before mystery, and faith smiles within understanding. To one who has faith, no explanation is necessary. To one without faith, no explanation is possible. Thomas Aquinas did not see reason as a threat to religion. He saw it as God's gift so that we might believe more deeply. For blind belief is not true faith, and reason without love and faith grows proud and shallow. In that light, Greek philosophy and Christian theology are no longer opposed, but complete one another. The thought of Aristotle, with its reflections on being, cause, and order, became the foundation for Aquinas' theology. But it was Christianity, with the light of faith, that breathed a soul into that philosophy, making it not merely thought but a spiritual journey. From there, the West received a bridge between Athens and Jerusalem, between philosophy and revelation, between science and faith. A little knowledge of God is worth more than a great deal of knowledge about him. Thomas Aquinas understood that knowledge has value only when it leads us to contemplation. For reason, no matter how great, is but a small candle, and faith is the breeze that makes that candle blaze, not extinguish. And so he encouraged dialogue, not only between believers and non-believers, but among all seeking hearts. For truth, he held, belongs to no single religion, nation, or age. Truth belongs to all, for all are made in the image of God, who is absolute truth. all truth. Whoever utters it comes from the Holy Spirit. Thomas Aquinas respected every source of knowledge, every culture, every belief. He believed that if something is true, it belongs to God wherever it is spoken, by whomever. It was a rare spirit of openness in his time, and it remains a foundation for dialogue among philosophy, science, and religion today. He did not ask us to choose between faith and understanding. He asked only that we never stop seeking, for both are paths toward the same light. Reason helps us see the beauty of creation. Faith lets us behold the unseen hand behind that beauty. Reason shows us there is order. Faith tells us that order has a heart. Faith seeks understanding. Thomas Aquinas' faith seeks understanding. And understanding, if truly deep, will always lead us back to faith. When we look at the world with the eyes of reason, we see laws. When we look with the heart of faith, we see miracles. They do not negate each other. They differ only in vantage point. One person sees water in a glass. Another sees the light reflected in it. Aquinas believed that in such harmony the human being finds true freedom, the freedom of both intellect and soul. For when reason and faith walk side by side, we are both knowledgeable and humble, strong and gentle, explorers of the world who still lift our gaze to the heavens, and that is the deepest message of his entire system of thought. Aquinas saw the resurrection of the body not merely as a religious symbol, but as an affirmation of the world's inherent goodness. For if God called creation good from the beginning, its final destiny cannot be to deny the body, but to sanctify all of creation, every particle, every beam of light, every soul, all are returning to their original order, the order of love. All things desire to return to their source. Thomas Aquinas and humanity, creature of earth and heaven alike, is no exception. When the body is raised, it will no longer be a chain, but a halo of light surrounding the soul, so that the soul may behold God with the fullness of all that it is. This is the final reunion. Not to live another life, but to live eternal life in his pure light. When we understand this, we no longer fear death, for death does not take anything away. It simply returns us to the light we have, always carried in our hearts. Only when the weary body falls asleep does the soul truly awaken, and perhaps that is why Aquinas ended his entire philosophical system not with an argument, but with silence. The silence of one who has seen enough to know that everything has been completed in love. The highest knowledge is to know that we do not know. Thomas Aquinas, for when the soul touches God, words are no longer necessary, questions no longer meaningful. Only presence remains. Still, radiant and infinite, in this quiet night, if you gently close your eyes, imagine your soul as a small lamp in a sky of stars. You are not lost. You are returning to boundless light where every pain softens into peace. For it is in sleep itself that we learn to release, to trust, and to return to what lies beyond reason. What Thomas Aquinas called by the simplest and deepest of names, the love of God, after all he wrote, pondered and believed, Thomas Aquinas left the world a simple, undying truth. Veritas non potest contra veritatem. Thomas Aquinas. Truth cannot contradict truth, for across every level of understanding, from the smallest speck of dust to the farthest star, from the human mind to the eternity of God, there is only one truth, and every path of reason or of faith, if rightly walked, meets at the same point. Aquinas lived in an age split in two, between Greek philosophy and Christian theology, between reason and revelation, between those who believed only faith leads to God and those who believed reason alone leads to truth. But he did what few dared. He reconciled those poles through a love for truth. Faith and reason are like two wings on which the human spirit rises to the contemplation of truth. Thomas Aquinas, reason and faith to him are not opposing forces, but the two wings of the same soul. By reason, we can understand the world, see its order, and recognize the traces of the Creator in each phenomenon. By faith, we can pass beyond the limits of knowing to touch what reason cannot reach. One wing helps us fly, the other keeps us from falling. Aquinas affirmed that the truth of philosophy cannot contradict the truth of religion, for both spring from the same source of light, God. If there appears to be conflict, it is because human understanding is not yet bright enough to see that light refracting differently in two mirrors. For him, reason does not destroy faith, it prepares for faith. And faith does not negate reason, it illumines reason. Reason in man is rather like God in the world. Thomas Aquinas, reason in the human person is like God in the world, not ruling by imposition, but guiding by order and light. By reason, we recognize that existence has a purpose. By faith, we know that this purpose is love. In this vision, philosophy and theology are not two separate hills, but two parallel roads leading to the same summit. Eternal happiness, Aquinas taught, does not lie apart from the material world, nor does it deny it. For the human being is not a soul imprisoned in a body, but the perfect union of both. The soul does not escape the body, it fulfills it. And the body, too, is destined for glory. The body is for the soul what the instrument is for the musician. Thomas Aquinas, just as a musician cannot create melody without an instrument, the soul cannot fully express itself without the body, and at the resurrection, he wrote, "The body will be restored, no longer weak or suffering, but transformed in light. It will be a glorified body, free from material limitation, yet still truly human as it was meant to be. Not the soul escaping the flesh, but the flesh refined by the soul. Not death as disappearance, but death as passage into true life. Death is not the end, but the passage to life perfected." Thomas Aquinas believed that in the final moment of life, the soul does not fall into darkness, it passes through a door. Beyond that door lies not nothingness, but presence. No more time, no more distance, only boundless light, where every question dissolves into answer, and every pain transforms into understanding. In that state, the soul no longer knows God through concept or creed. It sees Him as He is. Aquinas called this the beatific vision, the direct experience of the divine. In the vision of God, all our desires find their rest. Thomas Aquinas, there, the intellect stops questioning, the heart stops yearning, and being itself stops searching, for in that light all things are revealed, and the soul knows it has finally come home. But Thomas also reminded us, the journey to that vision does not begin after death. The last things begin now, in every act of goodness. In every moment we live true to our own nature. Each choice toward the good, each act of love, forgiveness, or purity is one small step bringing the soul closer to eternal wholeness. Thus, salvation for Aquinas is not something granted from outside, but an awakening from within. When a person realizes they have always carried within themselves the light of the one they seek. Grace does not destroy nature, but perfects it. Thomas Aquinas' grace does not destroy human nature, it perfects it. God does not come to change us into something else, but to make us the most complete version of who we are, and that is the true meaning of resurrection. Not replacement, but transformation from within. When body and soul together become transparent to the light of God, imagine, one day, all suffering, all tears, all wounds humanity has ever carried are turned into light, not because they never existed, but because they have been understood, forgiven, and transfigured in perfect love. That Aquinas called eternal reconciliation, the moment when all opposites, good and evil, pain and joy, life and death, melt into one essence, love. The end of all our desires is the love of God. Thomas Aquinas, in this vision, the end is not to be feared. It is not an ending, but the dawn of real life. Death is only a thin veil between the finite and the infinite, between the echo and the original sound, and when the soul passes through, it does not vanish. It begins to sing again the song creation first heard at the dawn of time. In his vision, society is a living body. Government is its heart, pumping the lifeblood of order. Law is its skeleton, giving it structure. And its soul cocooned is the common good and shared virtue. When the common good is forgotten, that body begins to die. But when each person lives toward the good, when compassion and justice rise above self-interest, society itself becomes a reflection of divine order, a mirror of God amid ordinary life, and as a gentle cadence, Aquinas left the world a final reminder. The peace of society is the work of justice and the effect of charity. Thomas Aquinas' peace is the fruit of justice, and justice endures only when nourished by love. Without charity, justice grows cold. Without justice, charity becomes blind. Only when both unite can a society stand firm amid all change. And perhaps, in this quiet night, as we think of a world filled with conflict, the words of Thomas Aquinas still echo, that humanity, though diverse, is called to live together, to build a world that reflects the light of the self-existing one, that power, when untouched by compassion, turns into blood, and that a truly advanced society is not one with abundance, but the one where people see one another through the eyes of God, the eyes of justice, of mercy, of unconditional love. When you close your eyes tonight, imagine a world where all live by the natural law of goodness, where rulers govern with charity, and where every person finds freedom in mutual respect. That world may seem distant, but it begins here, in your own heart. For as Aquinas believed, every great order begins with a single soul turning toward the good, and perhaps that is the most beautiful dream ever woven by reason and faith together. When all his reflections on humanity, society, and virtue came to rest, Thomas Aquinas lifted his gaze beyond the boundaries of time. After all that we live, love, understand, and build, one final question still lingers. Like a gentle breath, none can escape. Where does the soul go? Aquinas called this eschatology with the study of last things, not to speak of the end of the world as destruction, but as the triumph of existence itself. For in his thought, nothing truly disappears. Everything returns to the one who created it. Human beings, he said, are born with an infinite longing, a desire that no wealth, fame, or knowledge can satisfy. Thus, the soul never rests in what is finite. It moves toward one final destination, where happiness no longer changes, and light never fades. Aquinas called this beatitudo, eternal happiness, the perfect joy of the soul when it beholds God directly. Man's ultimate happiness consists in the contemplation of God. Thomas Aquinas, to him, This is not a reward for those good enough, but the natural end of every soul created by God. Just as rivers flow to the sea, and flames rise toward the sun, the soul moves toward its source of light. The contemplation of God is not an action, but a state of perfection. When knowledge, love, and being merge into one, that is the moment when humanity no longer seeks, for it has found everything within the one where all seeking began. The ultimate end of man is not something created, but God himself. Thomas Aquinas. Aquinas lived in the Middle Ages, yet his thoughts sowed the seeds for the philosophy of modern liberty. He taught that political power is only just when it serves the common good, never when it serves itself. Thus, the ruler must be a guardian of the order of goodness, not a possessor of power. The ruler should be the servant of his people. Thomas Aquinas. When power serves private gain, it betrays the natural goal of politics and loses its moral foundation. And when that happens, the people, whose souls are endowed by God with reason, have the right to resist such injustice through their reason and virtue. Aquinas did not advocate violence. He merely affirmed an eternal principle. All power is given to serve the good. If power turns away from the good, it collapses upon itself, like a tree that rots once its roots are gone. For Aquinas, a good society is not one of blind obedience, but one of virtuous souls. The state is only the frame. The human soul is the instrument. Just politics must help those souls resonate together in the shared music of the common good. Thus, he believed that ethics and politics can never be separated. There can be no common good without good people, and no good people without a just society. In that vision, Aquinas saw communal life itself as part of the sacred journey. No one can reach ultimate happiness alone, for love, the highest virtue, exists only in relationship. Charity is the form, mover, mother and root of all virtues. Thomas Aquinas' charity is not merely one virtue among others. It is their root, their soul, their source of life. A community without charity will slowly wither, even if it has abundance and law, for only love gives spirit to justice, and only compassion makes law humane. Aquinas believed that, in their natural essence, all people are equal in dignity, for all are created in the image of God. Differences of status or power, he said, exist only as means of serving the common good, not as measures of human worth. All men are equal in that they are endowed with reason and born for freedom. Thomas Aquinas, from this idea, the world later found the roots of human rights and political freedom. Aquinas was not a man of the democratic age, but he planted its seed by affirming that human reason, though finite, reflects the light of God, and therefore no one has the right to extinguish that light in another person. Law is an ordinance of reason for the common good, made by him who has care of the community. Thomas Aquinas' law, if it does not arise from reason and does not aim toward the common good, is no longer truly a law. Just as morality, if it does not help humanity become happier, is no longer morality. And in the end, Aquinas linked all of ethics to one simple truth. All virtues, every law, every choice share one purpose: to lead the human being toward God, the source of all goodness. Man cannot live without joy. Therefore, when he is deprived of true spiritual joys, it is necessary that he become addicted to carnal pleasures. Thomas Aquinas, human beings cannot live without joy. If they lose their spiritual joy, they will turn to pleasures of the flesh. Thus, morality is not about denying joy, but about learning to rejoice rightly. To find joy in the light, In love, in goodness, when you live with virtue, you do not lose anything. You are simply remembering how your soul was made to be happy. And in the stillness of this night, as you listen to these words, perhaps you will understand why Aquinas always began and ended every thought with the light of the good. For in the end, all philosophy, all reasoning, every question of the human heart dissolves into a single answer, that to live well is to live close to God, and that God is not far away. He is present in every good choice, in every heartbeat that leans toward the light, in every peaceful sleep of an honest soul. After journeying through the realms of soul and virtue, Thomas Aquinas turned his gaze outward, toward the world in which people live together. If each person is born with the capacity for goodness, then society, the gathering of many such souls, must also have a moral purpose. Therefore, he believed that politics is not merely the art of ruling, but the art of living well together. In Aquinas' vision, the human being is never solitary. We cannot exist as isolated islands separate from the rest of the world. From birth, we live in relation, with family, with community, with society. Hence, he called the human being Homo politicus, the political or social creature. Man is by nature a social and political animal. Thomas Aquinas, we need one another to live, to learn, to love, to become human. If morality is the harmony within an individual soul, then politics is the harmony within the soul of a community. A good society is not one ruled by strict laws alone, but one in which every person can grow into the fullness of their own goodness. Aquinas believed the state exists not to dominate, but to serve. Government is not the master of the people, but the instrument of the common good. The common good, he wrote, is the highest goal of political life. An order in which all may live toward the good, develop virtue, and find happiness. The law should be framed for the common good of the community. Thomas Aquinas' law, therefore, is not a chain, but a path leading toward order. It is the expression of collective reason, established to keep the community moving in the direction of the good. And if a law turns away from the common good, if it serves only a few or serves private interests, it loses its legitimacy. A law that is not just seems to be no law at all. Thomas Aquinas, an unjust law is no law. For law, by its very nature, must reflect justice, the foundational virtue of all social life. Just as light cannot be darkness, law cannot be an instrument of oppression. Then Aquinas spoke of the three theological virtues: faith, hope, and charity. These are not cultivated by human effort alone, but are gifts of grace, threads that tie the soul directly to God. Faith has to do with things that are not seen, and hope with things that are not at hand. So Thomas Aquinas' faith allows us to believe in what we have not yet seen. Hope keeps the flame alive for what has not yet come. And charity, love, is the highest of them all, for it gives life to every other virtue. The things that we love tell us what we are. And Thomas Aquinas, if you wish to know who you are, look at what you love, for love is the deepest direction of the soul. It turns knowledge into life, ethics into joy, and humanity into a mirror reflecting the image of God. In Aquinas' view, it is not enough to do good. One must become good. To be good means allowing the soul to be transformed by goodness itself, not acting rightly out of fear of being wrong, but because goodness has become our nature. Morality, then, is not just about action. It is about being. A good heart is one in which goodness flows naturally, needing no justification, no proof. Imagine a man tending a garden. At first he must remember to water, to pull weeds, to be patient. But with time, the care itself becomes his joy. He no longer does it out of duty, but out of love for the garden. And in that moment, he has become virtuous, no longer separating doing good from being good. Happiness is secured through virtue. It is a good attained by man's own will. Thomas Aquinas, happiness is attained through virtue because virtue is the harmony of reason, will, and emotion. It helps us live according to our true nature, a nature that moves toward goodness and light. For Aquinas, to live morally is not to renounce happiness, but to find true happiness, the kind that time cannot erode. It is the state in which the soul is aligned with its own essence, and thus with the self-existing one. His moral philosophy is not a list of commandments, but a symphony. Each virtue a note, and together they form the melody of a tranquil soul. In the stillness of the night, when we reflect upon these things, we understand that good and evil, right and wrong, are not merely moral concepts. They are the vibrations of the soul itself. When we live in accord with our inner goodness, we feel light. When we stray from it, even if we hide behind reason, the heart feels heavy. Aquinas believed this very feeling is proof that the natural law is alive within us. No one needs to be told that deceit is wrong. We know it instinctively because it violates the essence of the soul. No one needs to be taught that love is good. We feel it because it draws us nearer to the one who made us. After leading us through the mysteries of being, knowledge, the self-existing one, and the human soul, Thomas Aquinas paused with a question. Simple, yet profound. If we are created to seek the good, what does it truly mean to live well? What makes a person not just do good, but be good? Aquinas did not answer with doctrine, but with the clear light of reason, what he called natural law. For him, God did not give humanity only faith, but also the ability to recognize goodness through reason. Thus, morality does not arise solely from scripture or commandment. It is inscribed in the very fabric of human nature. Natural law, according to Aquinas, is the way the human soul participates in the eternal law of God. Each person, through their reason, can recognize what is good, that which allows them to grow in harmony with their own nature. Just as a tree turns naturally toward the light, the human being turns toward goodness. This is not an imposition, but a natural inclination, a movement toward perfection, toward true happiness. Aquinas believed that in every action, the human being seeks some form of good, even when they are mistaken. No one does wrong because they wish to do wrong. They err only when they mistake something false for good. Thus, morality is not about forcing people to obey rules. It is about helping them see the true nature of the good, so they may choose it freely. Every agent acts for an end. Thomas Aquinas, every action has a purpose, and the ultimate purpose of the human being is happiness. Not fleeting pleasure, but true happiness, where the soul rests in perfect goodness. To reach this, Aquinas spoke of virtue, not as a set of rigid moral codes, but as the habit of the soul directed toward the good. A virtuous person does not have to strain to do what is right, because what is right has become natural to them, like breathing. Virtue denotes a certain perfection of a power. Thomas Aquinas, virtue is the perfection of a power. Through virtue, reason knows what is right. The will chooses it, and the emotions align with it. When these three are in harmony, a person becomes truly free. Free from temptation, from confusion, from the restless pull of their own impulses. Aquinas divided virtue into two groups, the four cardinal virtues and the three theological virtues. The four cardinal virtues, the pillars of the moral life, are prudence, the ability to discern what is right in every circumstance, not by instinct but by clear reason; justice, the act of giving each their due, honoring order and dignity; fortitude, the strength of soul to face fear and endure hardship for what is right; temperance, the balance that knows when to stop, what is enough, allowing the body to serve the soul rather than rule it. These four virtues are like the four winds that keep the sail of life full yet steady. Without them, one is either swept away by passion or frozen by fear. When Aquinas spoke of the soul, he did not use the language of mysticism, but of calm reason. The soul, to him, is the power of perception, the center of will. The wellspring of love, it is the place within us that perceives truth and freely chooses to act upon it. That is what makes us not merely a part of nature, but beings capable of rising beyond nature. No animal asks, "Who am I?" No mountain contemplates its own beauty. Only humanity, through reason and soul, can both exist and be aware of its existence. The human soul is something subsistent, incorruptible, and immortal. Thomas Aquinas, the soul, therefore, is not destroyed when the body returns to dust. It continues, carrying the imprint of every act, every choice, every echo of good and evil it has known. And in Aquinas' vision, it is here that the human being ceases to be a creature of time alone and becomes a being of eternity. If the body helps us sense the world, the soul helps us understand its meaning. If the body teaches us to love through touch, the soul teaches us to love through offering. Only when both unite does a person truly become whole. In Aquinas' philosophy, humanity is not the center of the universe, yet we are the bridge between creation and the Creator. We exist to behold, to love, to create, and to return to the source of light. Life, therefore, is not a path to travel, but a journey of return. When we look back upon our lives, the joys, the wounds, the longings, we realize that all of them are ways the soul remembers where it came from. Each act of love is the soul expanding. Each moment of pain is the soul being refined. And each recognition of beauty is one more step toward God, even if we do not call Him by any name. The things that we love tell us what we are. Thomas Aquinas, what we love reflects what we are. If we love goodness, we become good. If we love beauty, we become pure. And if we love truth, we draw near to God, for He is the absolute truth, goodness, and beauty. Perhaps that is why human beings have always looked up to the sky, because deep down we know we belong there, not because the body wishes to fly, but because the soul wishes to remember. When Thomas Aquinas wrote the final lines of his life, he no longer argued, no longer expanded his monumental works. It is said that after a moment of divine vision in prayer, he quietly spoke, "All that I have written seems like straw compared to what has now been revealed to me." Thomas Aquinas, and perhaps, in that instant, he understood completely what he had sought all his life, that no matter how wise we are, we stand only at the shore of an infinite ocean, and all knowledge is but an echo of a greater truth calling us home. In the stillness of the night, as you hear these words, remember that your essence is not only the body that breathes, you are the union of feeling and soul, of earth and light, of existence and dream. You carry within you the imprint of the infinite, and that is why you will never cease to seek. When you perceive beauty, you are touching God. When you love, you are reflecting Him. And when you find peace in stillness, that is when you have come home, without moving at all, only returning inward. For there, in the deepest chamber of the soul, God remains, not as a distant concept, but as the very breath you draw, as the heartbeat you quietly hear. And when sleep comes, do not think you are leaving the world. Think instead that you are returning to your truest nature, where soul and body melt together in the serenity of the one who made all things. After journeying through the 5 ways that lead to the self-existing one, Thomas Aquinas paused and turned his gaze toward humanity, that small creature holding within itself an entire universe. If God is the first principle and final end of all existence, then the human being is the mirror of his image, a being both material and divine. Aquinas did not see man as a soul trapped in the body, nor the body as a prison for the spirit. He believed that man is a union of soul and body, 2 inseparable elements like the light and warmth of a single flame. The body is what roots us in this world. It gives us sensation, limitation, pain, and joy. But the soul is what lifts us beyond it. It grants us the power to think, to love, to create, and to reach for something greater than ourselves. Aquinas called the soul the form of the body, meaning that the soul gives the body its shape, its purpose, and its life. Without the soul, the body is motionless matter. But without the body, the soul has no voice in the world. They are joined, like music and its echo, like breath and speech. The soul is the form of the body. Thomas Aquinas, and in this union, the human being becomes a bridge between matter and spirit. Between earth and heaven, we are creatures of dust and yet beings of light, bound by gravity and yet lifted by an infinite longing. Thomas believed that deep within every person lies a transcendent desire, a longing that never fades. We may chase knowledge, immerse ourselves in beauty, seek love or power, but even if we gain them all, there remains a quiet emptiness inside, a space that nothing finite can fill, because the human being does not only desire greatness, but longs for the infinite. That is the natural inclination toward God, the natural desire for God. Man's final happiness consists in the contemplation of God. Thomas Aquinas, the ultimate happiness of humankind is not found in wealth, fame, or knowledge, but in the contemplation of God, the moment when the soul becomes one with the light it has always sought. Like a drop returning to the ocean, like a flame returning to the sun, yet this path is not an escape from life. It is to live within the world with transcendent awareness. Aquinas taught that the goal of life is to move toward the true, the good, the beautiful, and the holy, the 4 pillars of perfection. Truth, to seek what is real. Goodness, to act rightly. Beauty, to feel the splendor within every creation. Holiness, to unite one's soul with the Absolute. There is no shorter path than the path of living well each day. For in every small act, every thought, every choice, the soul finds a chance to draw closer to the perfection toward which it longs. Thomas said that when a person does good, they do not act merely by reason, but participate in the very nature of God. For God himself is goodness itself. God is goodness itself. Thomas Aquinas, human beings, therefore can never be separated from goodness, for goodness is the natural calling of the soul, and through it we understand why conscience, though it may be buried, always remains. It is the echo of the Creator within each of us, a quiet reminder that we were born not only to live, but to become better. The fourth path Aquinas called the gradation of being. He looked upon the world and saw that everything exists in degrees. Some things are more beautiful, some better, some truer, some brighter. Comparison itself only makes sense if there exists a standard, an ultimate measure against which all things are known. When we say, "This light is dim," we know it only because we have seen brighter light. When we say, "This is good," it is because we are reaching towards something even better. From this, Aquinas concluded, all relative degrees point toward one absolute perfection, a standard beyond comparison, a fullness that lacks nothing, the source of all goodness, truth, and being. Such perfection cannot be merely a concept. It must be the source of all perfections, the sun of all values, from which every form of goodness, beauty, and truth shines forth. The maximum in any genus is the cause of all in that genus. There must be something which is to all beings the cause of their being, goodness, and every other perfection, and this we call God. Thomas Aquinas, in the stillness of the night, when we see the faint moon reflected upon the surface of the water, we understand that the beauty we witness is not its own. It is only the reflection of a greater light, the light of perfection itself. And perhaps that is why the human heart forever yearns toward the good, the true and the beautiful, for deep within us, we have always belonged to that place. Aquinas recognized that the universe is not chaos. From the orbits of the planets to the curve of a sunflower's petals, from the rhythm of the human heartbeat to the flow of time itself, everything moves with purpose, order, and harmony. And yet, strangely, much of what exists has no consciousness. It still acts as though it knows what it is doing. An arrow does not fly by itself, yet it strikes the target because there is one who aims it. And if the world is like a vast arrow moving through the cosmos along its perfect course, then there must be an intelligent being who directs it toward its end. We see that things which lack knowledge, such as natural bodies, act for an end. Therefore, some intelligent being exists by whom all natural things are directed to their end, and this being we call God. Thomas Aquinas, from dust to stars, from the beating of the heart to the breath we draw, everything belongs to an invisible symphony, and when we listen closely, we can sense a silent hand guiding that music, not through force, but through order, through wisdom. These 5 paths, 5 ways leading to the same conclusion. They are not dry proofs, but 5 melodies of reason, all joining in one harmony. That God is both the first principle and the final purpose of all existence. Aquinas did not seek to impose faith. He simply showed that when we gaze upon the world with clear reason, that very reason leads us toward God. To one who has faith, no explanation is necessary. To one without faith, no explanation is possible. Thomas Aquinas, and perhaps in this quiet night, as you listen to these words, you too may feel what Thomas once felt, a gentle force breathing through every moment, unspoken, unseen, yet present in all things and within the rhythm of your heartbeat. You may understand you do not need to see God to know He is there, for there are truths that do not need to be proven. They only need to be felt. Since the time of Aristotle, philosophers have spoken of motion. Everything changes, everything is moved by something else. Aquinas inherited and expanded this idea. He observed, nothing moves by itself. Every motion requires a mover, and if we trace this chain backward, this thing moved by that, and that by another, that the sequence cannot continue forever, for then nothing could have ever begun. Therefore, there must be a first mover, something that moves all things, yet is itself unmoved. That is, the unmoved mover. Thomas wrote, "In the world we see motion. Everything moved is moved by another. But this cannot go on to infinity. Therefore, there must be a first mover itself, unmoved." Thomas Aquinas, it may sound abstract, but imagine this. When you see waves upon the surface of the sea, you know they do not arise on their own. The waves are born from the wind. The wind comes from the shifting of temperatures, and those temperatures are kindled by the sun. And if you ask, who has lit the sun? Your mind touches the final wall of comprehension, the point where all motion traces back to one original source, itself unmoving, yet setting everything into motion. From there, Aquinas followed the second path, the first cause. In the visible world, everything has a cause. Nothing simply is without reason. A seed sprouts because it is sown in the soil. Rain falls because the clouds gather. A thought arises because a memory stirs it. Everything begins from something that came before. But if all things require causes, what began the first cause itself? Aquinas argued that the chain of causation cannot extend infinitely backward, for if there were no first cause, nothing would ever come to be. Thus, there must be a first efficient cause, unmoved, uncaused, yet the source of all that exists. He wrote, "In efficient causes it is not possible to go on to infinity. Therefore, it is necessary to admit a first efficient cause, to which everyone gives the name of God." Thomas Aquinas, and that being he called God. Not a deity who interferes in every small affair, but the eternal cause behind all other causes. The third path, Aquinas called the necessary being. He observed that in this world, everything can be or not be. A flower may bloom and wither, a star may shine and fade away. Even humankind, here today and gone tomorrow. This means that all things in this finite world are contingent. They might not have been, but if everything were merely possible not to exist, there would have been a time when nothing existed at all, and if nothing existed, nothing could ever have begun to exist. Therefore, there must be one necessary being, a foundation that cannot not exist, from which everything else receives the gift of being. That being, said Aquinas, is God, the necessary being. If everything cannot be, then at one time there was nothing in existence. If at one time nothing was in existence, it would have been impossible for anything to have begun to exist. Therefore, not all beings are merely possible, but there must exist something the existence of which is necessary. Thomas Aquinas, and strangely as we ponder this in the quiet of night, we may sense it amid our own fragility, the presence of something enduring, like the steady heartbeat of the universe, unchanging, unfading, needing no reason to exist. Tonight, as you gently close your eyes, remember that everything you know, every sound, every image, every breath is part of a greater truth embracing you, and within that stillness where reason ceases to analyze, faith begins to speak, not in words, not in ideas, but in a quiet peace, something that can be felt, but never fully described. For in the end, true knowledge is not about knowing more, but about knowing how to let go, so that we may see more clearly. And perhaps in the sleep that draws near, you will realize the most beautiful part of understanding is not found in the answer, but in the gentle light of the question that remains unspoken. After Thomas Aquinas guided us through the landscape of perception, and where reason and faith intertwine like two mirrored streams of light, he opened another door, a place where humanity seeks not only to understand the world, but to understand why it exists at all. If knowledge is the path that leads us to truth, then the greatest question still lingers, echoing softly through the night. If everything has a cause, what is the first cause of all? Aquinas did not search for this answer through blind faith, but through pure reason, through a chain of logic as solid as the stone foundations of his great cathedral of thought, called it the 5 ways, 5 paths through which the human mind may approach the self-existing one, not through revelation, but through observation, reflection, and the coherence of reality itself. For Aquinas, the journey of knowledge is a journey of return, not towards something new, but back to the original light, where all understanding begins and ends in the self-existing one. The more we learn, the smaller we feel. The more we know, the clearer it becomes that knowledge is not meant to dominate, but to bow before the mystery of existence. Yet Aquinas also reminded us, reason is not the enemy of faith. On the contrary, it is the path that allows faith to shine clearly. For if we only believe without understanding, our faith is blind. But if we only understand without believing, our knowledge is hollow. Truth becomes true light only when reason illuminates faith, and faith upholds reason. In this way, knowledge is no longer a game of intellect, but a spiritual journey. Each time we understand something new, we draw closer to the one who created all things. Each moment of reflection, of wondering and questioning, is not merely the work of the brain, but the echo of the soul, seeking its way back to the primordial light from which it came. Aquinas once said, "Reason is the light of the mind, given by God to guide us toward truth." Reason, the light within the mind, is the lamp God placed inside each human being. It can never replace him, but through it we can find our way through the darkness of unknowing. And perhaps knowledge too is like sleep. We cannot force ourselves into it. We can only relax and allow it to come. When the mind stops resisting, when we let go of the desire to prove, true understanding quietly opens its door. It is no longer the knowledge of scholars, but the knowing of the soul and a wordless, reasoningless awareness, a simple act of being, and in that realization, we understand knowledge and faith are not 2 separate halves of humanity. They are 2 heartbeats of the same soul, the rhythm that leads us home to the one who gave us the power to know, to love, and to exist. For if everything is granted existence, then what of knowledge, that light within the mind? Is it also something bestowed upon us in the same way? Or is it a lamp we kindle ourselves, reflecting the light of the self-existing one we once glimpsed in the darkness of thought? Thomas Aquinas believed that humanity is a wondrous kind of being, both material and capable of touching the invisible. Within the limits of the body, we can still reach toward truth, something unseen by the eyes, yet felt through the intellect. He called humanity the rational creature, a form of existence woven from reason, memory, and the yearning to know truth. In every breath, we do not merely exist, we perceive. And it is this very act of perception that gives meaning to existence. Aquinas taught that human knowledge begins with the senses, from the tangible world that surrounds us. When we touch, see, hear the wind, or smell the scent of rain on soil, these sensations become the raw material of thought. From concrete images, the mind begins to abstract, to draw out the shared essence of things. From "this is a tree" to "all trees live by the light," and then to the universal idea, depends on light to exist. Thus, knowledge is not mere reflection, but a journey from darkness to light, from the particular to the universal. In that process, the human intellect is like a mirror, at first clouded, then slowly polished bright by experience and contemplation. Aquinas believed the human mind is capable of touching natural truth, the truths of the world that reason can discover. These are the natural truths we learn through observation, analysis, and reasoning, like knowing that water boils at 100 degrees, or that the earth revolves around the sun. Such things need no revelation, no miracle. They reveal themselves within the order of the world. For God himself has left his fingerprints upon creation, and yet Aquinas also believed there lies a deeper realm, where truth does not come from observation, but from revelation. This is revealed truth, truth bestowed by the self-existing one, beyond the reach of human reason. It is the faith in creation, the immortality of the soul, the sacredness of divine love, truths that cannot be proven by formula, yet cannot be denied by reason, for they touch the innermost chamber of awareness, the divine intuition. In Aquinas' view, these two kinds of truth are not in conflict. They are like two rivers flowing toward the same sea, from the same source, by different paths. The truth of reason never contradicts the truth of revelation, for both spring from one creator. If ever they seem to clash, the fault lies not in truth itself, but in the limitation of human understanding. Aquinas wrote, "Truth cannot contradict truth." And in the quiet of the night, when we close our eyes, that sentence drifts through the air like a cool breeze. There are no two opposing truths, only one truth, seen from two sides, the light of reason and the light of faith. If essence and existence teach us why we exist, then epistemology, the study of knowledge, teaches us how we know we are truly alive, not merely through sensation or thought, but through the bridge between two worlds, the world we can touch and the world we can only feel. Imagine standing by the sea at night. Moonlight spills upon the waves, scattering into glimmers. You see the moon, yet what you truly see is only its reflection upon the water. So too, the human intellect reflects only a fraction of truth's light, but through that reflection, we know that the true light exists somewhere beyond our reach. When we understand this, we awaken to a gentle truth. All of us, though finite, are participating in something infinite. Our existence is not solitary. It is sustained by the very act of being of the self-existent one. In Aquinas' view, every phenomenon is a testimony to ultimate existence. Every breath, every heartbeat, every beam of light whispers softly, "I exist, because I am given existence." This is not blind faith, but a philosophical experience of stillness, where reason and the soul bow together in quiet reverence. Aquinas believed that the deeper we understand the nature of things, the smaller we realize ourselves to be. For reason, no matter how luminous, is only a small candle amidst the vast night of existence, and yet, because of that, the candle becomes precious, for it allows us to glimpse the greater light that surrounds us, just like sleep. When we close our eyes, we do not vanish. We simply return to something deeper within ourselves, where reason falls silent and faith begins to speak. That, for Thomas, was the harmony he sought all his life, a stillness that holds understanding, and a wisdom that leads back into stillness in our modern world, where people are so busy that they forget even to breathe deeply. The thoughts of Aquinas still echo quietly, yet profoundly. They remind us that existence is not something self-evident, it is a miracle. When we perceive the difference between having essence and being granted existence, we begin to cherish every moment of life, for perhaps our essence is to be dreamers, to love, to learn, to seek. But we only truly are when those essences are awakened through being, through living, feeling and knowing. And in this very moment, as you listen to this story, you are existing, participating in what Thomas called the mystery of being. The voice slows, gentle as breath itself. Perhaps sleep too is a metaphor for that truth. When we enter sleep, we do not disappear from the world. we return to the stillest part of our own nature. Within the darkness and the steady rhythm of breath, we feel a pure presence, needing no proof, no explanation, and perhaps in that very moment, we are closer to the self-existing one than ever before, not through knowledge, but through pure being. You do not have to understand everything to be at peace. Sometimes simply knowing that you exist is enough. May you drift into a peaceful sleep, where reason and faith rest together in silence. And when you awaken, remember that you in this very moment are part of the infinite act of existence itself. As we gently step away from the light of being, where essence and existence dissolve into one another like breath and soul, we cross into another realm, where light no longer shines only from the self-existing one, but from the very eyes that see, the mind that contemplates, and the question that forever whispers within us, how do we know what is truly real? In the 13th century, within the cold stone walls of a Paris monastery, Thomas Aquinas sat silently before the dim flame of an oil lamp. His quill moved slowly across sheets of parchment, as though recording the heartbeat of the universe. He was not merely a priest, he was one who dared to ask the questions that both the church and philosophy hesitated to confront. How can we understand God if reason is seen as the enemy of faith? And if all things have a beginning, what makes existence itself real? Thomas believed that the world was neither an illusion nor a jest of fate. Everything, from the tiniest speck of dust to the human soul, carries within it its own essence. Yet, that alone does not grant it the right to exist. According to Aquinas, essence is what makes a thing what it is. The fragrance of a rose, the burning of a flame. Essence is the pattern of existence and the latent capacity that allows something to be itself. Imagine a seed. Within it lies the entire essence of a great tree, its form, its lifeblood, its branches reaching toward the wind. Yet the seed is not a tree. It possesses the essence of the tree but does not yet exist as one. Aquinas believed that everything finite in this world is like that seed, possessing essence, yet not necessarily existence. Things exist only when an external cause grants them the act of being. And in that truth he saw the limit of all created things, a boundary that only the absolute could transcend. If essence is potential, then existence is the flame that awakens that potential. It is the breath that transforms what could be into what is. Thomas wrote, "Essence is that by which a thing is what it is. Existence is that by which a thing is." That is the difference between the statue in imagination and the statue that stands before you, tangible, touchable. Between the soul in a dream and the person who breathes. But Thomas did not stop there. He asked, if everything requires a cause to exist, then what is the first cause? Who has granted existence to the universe itself? His answer was not found in scripture, but within metaphysics itself. Only the self-existing one, being itself, is the being whose essence is existence. The voice slows, deepens, and resonates through the space. Imagine a flame that needs no spark, a river with no source, a light that shines without a sun. That is God in the thought of Thomas Aquinas. Not a distant deity, but the very substance of being itself. He does not have existence. He is existence. Existence is his very essence, and everything else is but the reflection of that light. Things do not exist by themselves, but because they participate in his being, like the moon reflecting the light of the sun. Thus, for Aquinas, God is not above creation, but within the foundation of all that is. Not a being within the universe, but the reason the universe can exist at all. So tonight, let yourself drift with this story. No need to understand, no need to analyze, just relax. And let the ideas of reason, faith, and existence flow softly through you like incense smoke in the dark. For who knows, between dream and reality, between thought and stillness, you may find yourself in that sacred space where the light of understanding meets the gentle shadow of belief. And that is the science of sleep, a journey not merely to rest, but to awaken within the dream. There are nights when, as we lie still in the dark, we sense something strange. A part of us longs to sink into sleep, yet another part keeps its eyes open. Within the mind, that is the realm of intellect, where unanswered questions still hum softly. What makes us exist? What gives a leaf, a drop of water, a soul, its reality? Thomas Aquinas once pondered the same. Between the worlds of faith and reason, he sought something beyond all concepts, a pure essence, the place where all things begin, where being and existence are no longer separate, and from that search, his philosophy of essence and existence was born, like a candle in the long night of consciousness, illuminating humanity's greatest question, I exist, yeah, but what does that truly mean? Tonight I'll tell you about a man who once stood between those two worlds, a man who devoted his life to finding a bridge between Aristotle's science and the faith of Christianity. They called him Thomas Aquinas, philosopher, priest, and the thinker who built what many call the Cathedral of Western Intellect. In the 13th century, when dogma and reason clashed like two rivers that could not merge, Thomas Aquinas chose the hardest path of all, neither denying faith nor rejecting reason. He believed that human intellect, the divine gift of God, was the very path that would lead us to truth, not something opposed to faith. On nights like this, when every light has gone out and only the quiet breath of time remains, I often find myself wondering, is it perhaps in this stillness that reason and faith finally meet? Maybe that is what Thomas wanted us to feel, not through the pages of books, but through the serenity of awareness itself, where the mind stops chasing answers and begins to listen to the echoes of the universe within. Welcome to Lucid Dream, Sleep and Science Stories, a place where stories don't just lull you into sleep, but awaken the deepest corners of your mind. Here, every night is a journey, a quiet voyage between science and the soul, reason and faith, waking and dreaming. As you close your eyes, the world outside begins to fade. All the noise, all the worries seem to dissolve, leaving only the sound of your own heartbeat. A heartbeat? Like the knocking at the door of another realm of consciousness, where knowledge and dreams no longer have boundaries.